Right. Should be live now. So we are good. Thank you for coming to Garage Poets. I'm sorry, Jeff is spending time with his children tonight, so he will not be here unless he's able to come in a little bit later. In which case he'll join. He did join for a little bit. I don't know if you guys seen him. He stopped in just to kind of say hi. But today we have Catherine Weiss with us, and I will give you her bio here in a little bit. And we're gonna ask a few questions, not a lot, little interview, get to know her a little bit more. And then they will give us a reading feature, read some poems for us. And then we will get into the open mic. So if you want to drop names in the chat during that time, you can, and then we will get into that. All right, so Catherine Weiss is a poet and artist from Maine. Poetry has been featured in Tinderbox, Up the Staircase, Fugue, Perhappened, Birdcoat, Bodega, Counterclock. I'm gonna say this wrong, Petrichor, I think.
You got it.
Flypaper literature. Catherine is the artist behind the collaborative poetry chapbook card deck, I Wish I Wasn't Royalty with Game Over Books. They're also the author of a chapbook length poem, Fervor, and a full-length poetry collection, Wolf Girls versus Horse Girls, which I have a copy of. It is an amazing book. You guys should get this.
Thank you.
And if you want to see more of her work, you can go to her website, catherineweiss.com, to see more of that. And if you're not following her on social media, you should do that as well, because she does very, very cute little designs of pugs, which I really love. So, Catherine, thank you for joining us today. So I just have a few questions for you. We're going to just start out with the question we ask all poets, right? All writers, artists. What is it that inspires you to write? Like, what is your muse when it comes to your creative outlet?
That's like a great question, and I don't have a very good answer for it. I think I get inspired by other writers mostly. And some of the things that make me want to write most is going to an open mic. That's how I got started. And going like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I want to write something like that. And then trying out different things, or reading books of poetry, or encountering other kinds of art, is usually what gets the flow going for writing my own work.
Okay. Now I did notice in your collection that you did have some poetry that was based on middle school, and we had talked about that earlier. When did you start writing?
So I started writing when I was a kid, and I actually got in a lot of trouble in high school for writing a satiric poem about the school that, like, it was like a silly poem. It was really long, and it was about my classmates and teachers, and I got in a lot of trouble. I got suspended because I used curse words and was very rude, and it was probably ill-advised. So then I didn't write for a long time after that happened, because I was like, it's too powerful. I shouldn't mess with this. But then I started going to open mics about 10 years ago and got back into writing then.
See, they're always stifling the kids, man. They should just let you keep going.
Yeah.
So a question that I like to ask other creatives and other writers, because I'm always astounded by it. What is your writing process? Do you set aside a time to write every day, or is it just random, like when you go to the open mics, or how does that process work out for you when you're creating a piece, either poetry or art?
I don't have a set time. It's kind of whenever I can make time. And I have my own little rituals around writing, which starts with making notes and text edit. It's like all very technical and kind of like boring, but it has to do with like changing fonts when it's a real poem, and moving the like pre-poem from text edit into the Word document, and all of these little like text-based rituals around the creation and like acknowledgement when it turns into like notes into a poem.
Because you do so many different mediums and styles, what piece of work are you like most proud of? What is your favorite of what you do? What would you say is your favorite outlet?
I think that, so I do poetry, but I also do the visual art, as we were talking about. And I think I would call myself first a poet, but sorry, I'm having a tickle in my throat. I would say that I'm more skilled as a poet and have more practice, but I think that also the two sort of halves feed each other. And so like there are some days when I'm like, I want to create something, but I don't have words. And so I turn to drawing or crochet or whatever it is. And some days I might have had like a very vivid dream and want to draw or try to translate the things back and forth. And I think that they definitely speak to each other, and create like a wheel.
And talking about speaking to each other, you have the collection of cards, which we mentioned in your bio. You did the artwork for that, but it was like a metaphor deck, right? Where they could pull it up, flip over cards and kind of give yourself writing prompts, from what I understood.
Actually that deck was part, it's a playing deck that you could, like a playing card deck that has like, hearts, spades, diamonds, and clubs. So you can play any poker game or any normal card game with it. But there's art on each card, and there's a line of poetry. And we had 4 different poets contribute short 13-line poems, 1 line for each card. And so that it was cool. Their work would get shuffled together. And the concept behind that was the theme was bipolar disorder and extreme mood states. And so some of the poets wrote about mania and some wrote about depression. And so it was like the effect of jumbling their poems together was that you would get these contrasting juxtapositions of poetry in unexpected ways.
Okay.
Over the course of playing whatever, card game you wanted to play.
Yeah, that I was looking into it. When I went to the site, it was sold out. So I was like, I'm getting I'm getting a deck of those. But I'm definitely gonna find them if they come back in stock there.
Cool.
But like just talking about your creativity and the different things that you do. Before we went live, we were kind of talking about that. You have Fervor, which is a complete chat book. That's a golden shovel. And I was so happy when I saw that it was in Wolf Girls because I got to read it. And it's all based off the song All Star, but the poem itself isn't obviously about the song, which is just creative. Like how did you come up with that idea, and what is it that you try a lot of different forms in your work? Like what is it that allows you to do that?
So the creation of that poem, so for anyone listening who doesn't know what a golden shovel is, there's an origin text. In my case, it was the song All Star by Smash Mouth, and it's woven word by word into whatever poem that you're writing. So the last word of every line, if you read down the right-hand margin, is this other text. And I thought basically, like, wouldn't it be funny? Because many of the golden shovels that I have seen take their source material more seriously than I was taking. And so I thought basically a lot of my experiments come from, wouldn't it be funny if I tried X silly combination and it turned out to work? And most of the time it doesn't work, but sometimes it does. And so that's where that came from.
Yeah, it was funny because when I was reading it, I was like, how the shape of an L, and I was like, how did she use that L line? How did she use that L line? And I like went through it real fast to see how you got there. When I seen it, I was like, brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, golden shuffles are interesting because, at least for me, I don't start with like an idea, like they're kind of guided by my whatever obsession of the moment is. So if I try to control it too much or write too far ahead, it ends up not working. And so I have to just kind of see line by line, like, okay, what are the next 2 words that I'm going to have to meet that are predetermined by this other source material? And then just kind of see where the poem wants to go. And sometimes it's surprising, even to the writer.
Right. What is your favorite piece when you're performing of yours? Is it, I know you, like I said, I know you do a lot of different forms. Is it the that one because it's your longest one, or which one?
I almost never perform that one because it's so long. Actually, the one that I have the most soft spot for is from Wolf Girls, and I was planning on performing it this evening. It's the one that's I Can Guess What Instrument You Played in Middle School Band.
Okay.
And it's just that one I like, I think, because it is a little more soft and tender than I usually write. But I think, I don't know, it makes me feel warm inside. So I like performing it.
Yeah, and giving you your flowers again. When I got to the end of the book, you have where it tells what form, like you have so many contrapuntals in there, and those are so hard to write, so hard to write. And you have a few of them, and they don't take themselves too seriously, you know what I mean? And I really love that. So hearing that you kind of looked at it as what would happen if makes sense to me. And it's kind of nice how you have your own style, even amongst the different forms. It's very you, and I really like that. Who would you say is your inspiration? If you had to read like your top 3 poets or top 3 creatives, who would that be?
Off the top of my head, I would say Olivia Gatwood, Hanif Abdurraqib, and Matthew Oldsman. Yeah.
All right. If we had, someone who was looking to start writing, watching today, what is something that you would tell them that made you successful? What would you say to them, a younger you, I guess?
I would tell a younger me to have fun and not get too hung up on what poetry is supposed to look like. When I started, I was doing mostly slam, and there are a lot of, it's not rules per se, but like there are a lot of expectations around what a poem that should win should look like. And I didn't win very much because my poems didn't align with whatever. They just, and I got, it bummed me out. But finding your niche, and then working to develop what strengths you already have is probably the best way to go than trying to put a square peg into a round hole when it doesn't have to be like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to take up all your time. What if something interesting you can tell us that most people don't know about you?
Oh, well, I don't know if this is certainly personal. But so I had mentioned that I wrote a poem in high school. I got in a lot of trouble for it, and I didn't write again for a long time. And the first time I wrote again was in the psych ward for depression, because I just had a notebook and a pen and a lot of free time. And I was like, I do not know what else to do. So that was my reentry. I guess that's interesting, if nothing else. That was my reentry into poetry. And then I started going back to open mics.
Okay. And this is just a random question, doesn't have to do with your writing. What's your favorite music album of all time?
The Presidents by the Presidents of the United States of America.
Okay. That's everyone's homework. You got to go listen to that to get to know Catherine a little bit better. But so I have taken 15 minutes of your time. So if you don't mind, you wanted to read a little bit for us, so everyone can kind of hear your work. I'm sure a lot of us have heard it, but we would love to hear some more. So the mic is yours.
Thank you so much. This was fun. Okay, so I'm gonna read a couple of poems for you guys. This first poem is from my new manuscript that is not forthcoming anywhere yet. So this is a pretty new poem. It's called Menace. Once I let a roommate I hardly knew lead me into midnight beyond a freeway exit ramp. He said there was a swimming hole. I watched him hold his beer like a broken bird. And I said, why not? I don't know if he carried that night, but when I tell this story, I picture his handgun nestled in a waistband, wide awake, mouthing, oh, you stupid bitch. There is a calculation. Maybe you know it. Go along in your right fist, enough in your left. Now I know not to walk into the woods with drunk men who hate me, but I knew then too. The future as a kitchen with the lights turned off. The past, every riverbed that didn't kill you. Why do I say yes? Why does anyone? Thank you. All right, this next poem is the wrestling poem. It's from my upcoming book called Grief Cake. And I'm going to put links to my books in the chat because my publisher would be sad if I didn't think to do that. So you can pre-order Grief Cake. It comes out in January, but here's a poem. It's called Mankind versus Undertaker, WWF 1998. I need to describe what it's like in my body when I watch The Undertaker fling Mankind off the top of the cage through a table 16 feet below. It's a zero gravity free-for-all in my stomach. Barbed wire butterflies. Something uptight in me is shattering. Have you ever seen a demolition derby from the front row? Watched a beat to shit junker crumple against a concrete barricade? That's what watching Mankind is like. It's visceral on a cellular level. Only his legs are visible, poking through the debris. He is motionless for a long time. Long enough to make you wonder. But he gets up. Some wrestlers are famous because they are good at flipping, good at kicking and hitting. Some, I suspect, are great because they make others look strong. I am new to pro wrestling fandom. I don't know much about Mankind. His name is Mick Foley. People say he's a genuine guy, a family man, totally committed to sacrificing his body for the show. There is something holy about watching this man lose. He's dropped onto thumbtacks, smashed with a folding chair, bleeding and gap-toothed for the god of spectacle. I respect that. Whereas The Undertaker is barely a factor in this match. He's winning, but anybody big can stomp around in boots. It takes someone special to do what Mankind is doing. Is this what Christians feel like? Am I allowed to ask that? All his suffering, it's for my benefit. I think that's a tooth stuck in his nose. I intended to write a poem about how pro wrestling is like love. It feels cheap to make the case, to mention sometimes the holds appear intimate or whatever. These are bodies at their limits. My experience of love is texting jokes from the other end of the couch, a foot rub, the bills paid, the mundane negotiation of what to watch on TV after dinner. Pro wrestling is not like love. I think pro wrestling is like doomed love. The disintegrating family melting down at the airport baggage claim. The caustic couple we laugh about in the car ride home after the dinner party. I too have been locked inside a cage like this while the partnership ends, crumpled in a public place. Thank you. So this next poem is short and it's also from the Grief Cake collection. Our future. My hands are too dirty to play with the baby at the party. I've touched all kinds of high traffic surfaces recently. Door handles, countertops. This morning, I put a finger in my armpit and I suspect it remains smelly. So no, I can't touch a baby who will probably grow up with ash in his lungs. There is trouble brewing under Yellowstone, drought in Massachusetts, floods in Pakistan all over the news. I put a deposit on a lapdog. What kind of person fears the world is finished and still insists on having toast? Thank you. This next one is called Working on My Night Moose. The only fact I remember from freshman year human evolution is that tale about the ancient broken femur that has healed. This was presented as the oldest evidence of civilization. The class was after lunch and I was drunk, so I only caught the gist of the lecture. That was the year I missed Thanksgiving because I was too hungover to get on a train. And that was also the year I bought 4 sterling silver Swiss Army knives with a credit card for no reason except mania. This is the year my dad left Thanksgiving to fly across the country because his mother is dying, and I bought a keytar for no reason. I don't get hangovers anymore, but I do lie in bed and worry about the thin veil between life and death. We get better, we get worse. Last night, I dreamed a giant moose with shimmering rainbow antlers walked out of the ocean. My husband sings, "Working on my night moose," when Bob Seger comes on the radio. I want to keep working on my night moose. I want to live long enough to mend. Thank you. So I have 2 more. This one is called Define Your Terms. At the end of the world, there is no such thing as a regrettable tattoo. At the end of the world, cows repose in a cool meadow. At the end of the world is a low fence, just tall enough to take you out at the knees if you were to back into it accidentally. At the end of the world, there won't be anyone to ask you to please define end and world. There is an a cappella group singing your favorite song for you at the end of the world. We are eating cold green beans out of the can like a family. We are holding hands and leaning to the edge. It goes without saying, at the end of the world, catharsis is mandatory. At the end of the world is a magic orb with birds inside it, the most beautiful birds you've ever seen. At the end of the world, everything you've seen will make sense. Almost all of us will make it home. All right, and this is my last poem. This is the one I mentioned as being maybe a favorite to perform. And it's from Wolf Girls. I can guess what instrument you played in middle school band. But what I mean is, did anybody ever call you queer during inside recess? When the rain fell too thick to spill us outside like a split bag of sugar. So instead, we played hangman on the whiteboard and made cruel games of MASH and called me queer in our most indoor of voices. And how was it that October wrapped oak roots around our ankles, and we looked ahead to all that might come of a sleepover that didn't, and of the book fair that did. And once someone wore a toga to the dance, and how everyone laughed because courage looks funny before we ever really had to be brave. And I feel like I knew you then, even though I didn't. And I bet you wanted to play the saxophone, but got told the clarinet was easier. And now you don't play anything except Spotify. And saxophone regret sits briefly on your tongue like a dry reed, but then melts like words chalked out before a storm. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll unmute your mics and give it up for Catherine. That was beautiful, Catherine. Thank you.
Hey, awesome.
Amazing.
Yes. Thank
That
you
was great.
Thank you so much for letting me question you and talk with you. Guys, also definitely go out and get that Wolf Girls versus Horse Girls. I'm definitely gonna do the pre-order for a Grief Case as well. Definitely a fan. You definitely got a fan out of me. So I hope you guys as well. So we are going to move on to the open mic round. As of right now, I have Robert on the list and Unmesh on deck. And then just drop your name in the chat and I will keep adding names. So Robert, you're up.
Can you let me share the screen?
I can make you co-host because I don't know how to do it otherwise.
That's fine. Thank
There you
you.
go.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Robert Fleming, a word artist from Delaware. My local writing group is the Rehoboth Writers Guild in Rehoboth, Delaware, and I'm an active participant. Our last group project was a cento poem with the theme of home, where people will submit either 2 or 3 lines of poetry or short fiction, and then one member will assemble the whole thing into a poem. And I'll read what my text submission was for that. It was 20 words. If a cumulonimbus cloud cry pools 2 inches under your cement sidewalk, your home floats in the flats of Lewis, Delaware. And then I will share the graphic art which I submitted, which will be included in so here it is. The person who's assembling the book says that she intends on having about a 10-page book with the group poem, the cento, and maybe 4 or 5 artists. So this will be my contribution for that. And I'll share a few more on the same theme of Earth from a dystopian point of view. This is the visual image which accompanies a poem I have called The Day the Rotation Died. And in writing that poem, my inspiration was to suggest that the death of disco music contributed to moving the earth towards the end. And I'll share one more art piece. So also my one of the activities that my writers group, the Rehoboth Beach, has, we have something called Art in the AM, where different artists provide a visual prompt, and then the writers write up to 300 words, and we meet once a month at a coffee shop and have a reading. So this will be my my image for the December prompt, which will then be held at the coffee shop in January. And at the bottom of the screen is the yellow image. I started off with an image of the Earth, which I used in the first graphic image, and I manipulated the image to look like the sun burning. And thank you for letting me share my my images of the Earth, and greetings from Delaware.
Thanks, Robert. Those were awesome. Alrighty, so up next I have Unmesh, and on deck I have Rich.
Hello, hello everyone. Nice to be here. Okay, here I go. I am standing alone on the bank of the river. There are steps leading to the river. Blue-colored wooden empty benches in waiting for a company. On the right, there is an old bridge. Adjacent to it is the towering new bridge overshadowing the old. These are difficult times for things that are old. No repair, just replacement is the mantra in vogue. I saw a man walking on the river. He was not gliding, but walking on the river. The river is not in a pristine condition. The water is green. I can see green and yellow plants floating. They are trying to put the river into submission. But how can a man walk on the river? The bypassers were not surprised. They were looking at the river as if nothing has happened, as if walking on the river was as common as walking on the street. Is it possible that he was seen only to me? The rest of the world is oblivious to the man walking on the green river. Or is this the ghost on the bridge they can't stop talking about? Or am I looking at an alien? a writer to the core. I like this idea. Or is this quantum mechanics somebody walking somewhere and appearing at another place at the same time? Now let's not stress about quantum mechanics or cat in a box experiment. I wave at the river walker. The river walker waves back. He seems to be surprised, happy and scared at the same time. Surprised that someone saw him. Happy that he is no longer a secret. Scared that he is no longer a secret. Slowly he disappears into the green river. One day the river will disappear. The man walking on the river dies with the dead river, killed by the ignorant man walking on the street or driving a car. You and me, all of us. You and me, all of us. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Umesh. That was beautiful as always. Thank you. Alrighty. So next up we got Rich, and on deck we have Valerie.
All right, thank you, Shaki, and yeah, Unmesh, that was great. This is called The Bully Episode. Anyone else in the world remember the Brady Bunch episode where Peter had to fight a bully named Buddy Hinton, who had been teasing his little sister because of her lisp? I remember it ended with Peter eventually squaring up at the end and knocking the bully's tooth loose. And the bully's heart died then. But before that moment in the episode, Peter's dad went over to reason with Mr. Hinton, the bully's father, only to walk back home without success, as the father was just as bad as the bully. Now, in my head, almost as if something was really wrong with me, I'd misremembered that Mike Brady came home with a black eye also, just like the one Peter got. But I guess your memory likes to change things up when called upon. In reality, Mr. Brady just walked away home in disgust at Mr. Hinton's attitude. But now I wonder if, in the background, the producers tried multiple versions of the story. Like, what if Mike Brady goes over to try and reason with Mr. Hinton, only to come back home actually missing an eye, causing serious alarm and concern for Carol Brady, Peter's mom and Mike's wife? So then what if Carol goes over to talk to the bully's mom, Mrs. Hinton, only to stagger and clamber her way home afterwards, missing both eyes, because Mrs. Hinton was even worse than her son or husband? So then what if Peter's older brother Greg calls the police because his parents can't see anymore, and the police pay a visit to the bully's home, only to be delivered back to the police station in body bags, because Mr. and Mrs. Hinton also happened to be gun-worshipping QAnon conspiracy theorist proto-militia 3%er survivalists in possession of multiple fully automatic rifles, the kind shown being used in war movies, Super Bowl commercials, and grade school playgrounds. So then what if the chief of the local police calls the governor of California, who mobilizes the National Guard to move on the Hinton compound? But then after that, the few surviving troops hobble back to the base, some with limbs missing, because Mr. and Mrs. Hinton, as members of their own secret militia, were also in possession of some rocket launchers and mines, decimating the advancing National Guard down to a tiny, limping number. So then what if the chief of the National Guard Bureau calls the president, desperately screaming for help against Mr. and Mrs. Hinton? And so what if finally, at long last then, the president orders a nuclear strike on 11220 Dilling Street, the house right next door to the Brady home? And then he does, crying in the Oval Office because he knows he just sacrificed most of California just because Cindy couldn't handle a little teasing.
I love that, as always, Rich.
Thank you.
I didn't mention it earlier, but if you were here for Catherine's feature and interview, if Catherine can put her Cash App or whatever in the chat, if everyone can just reach out, buy her a cup of coffee or a tank of gas, it would be appreciated. Obviously, we don't have a venue, so we can't like pay her to come in. So that would be our way of appreciating her, if you don't mind. And with that said, we got Valerie up, and then I have Malt is on deck.
If you don't have Catherine's book, it's amazing and you should get it. My poem's called My Voice in the Hospital. My room was 717. The nurse said, unless it is a brand new hospital, every room is haunted. The hospital intercom plays the first half bar of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star every time a baby is born, so you can think about new life while you die. Poor lungs, they have to inhale whatever is available. They should include little drains at the bottom. It's a design flaw, a character flaw. Forget everything you did wrong or wrong-ish. The way the doctor says, you don't look sick, sounds like a threat. My friend said you are kind of expected to have researched ahead of time what is wrong and tell the doctor. A person has to be told to eat more fiber by 6 different doctors before the ulcer that has always been there allows itself to be discovered. And by then, it's crying. It doesn't have tears, so it's using blood. I need to quickly assess who I can strangle with my eyes, who can I soften my eyes into baby deer eyes. I am doomed because the nurse isn't laughing at my jokes. I am excited to get my hands on my prescribed medicine and use it in a non-prescribed way. Thanks.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. So we have Malt and then Michael is on deck.
Sorry about that. My toddler is shouting in the background.
You're a little low. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. My toddler was shouting in the background.
Ah,
All right. So I am collaborating with Catherine on something, and I would like to show everybody if I could also be made a co-host, please.
absolutely. 1 second.
Thank you.
There you go.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. So, Catherine is an incredibly talented artist, and it's been so incredibly inspiring to watch her development. She's been making pictures of pugs, as has been mentioned, and we're collaborating on a project in some way that's going to combine short fiction, short creative works with these pictures. So I'm going to read some of what we've got so far. This one is called Cow Pug. Convergent evolution is the phenomenon wherein unrelated species will grow to resemble each other if pressed with similar ecological constraints. When invasive swarms of pugs colonized the newly terraformed plains of Whoopi Goldberg presents Mars, growing lanky and horse-like, the perfect hunter for an untamed alien biome. Do you know the horror of being chased down by a trampling beast whose respiratory system lives in war with itself? Horses were already, biologically speaking, disasters. The pug genetic sequence has done it no favors. It breathes like a steam train, one chugga short of boom. Get a dog, little doggy. This one is called Ivan Earl Pug. Nothing can measure a coastline, the smallness of you, how August dilates the sun, the rotational speed of the horizon as a child rolls downhill, how small a kingdom can be before a dog feels trivial guarding it, how often friendship feels like a nice house with no door, how many seagulls exist to shit on you personally, which islands are islands and which are sleeping turtles, where the distant half of a bridge goes in a fog bank, which shade of blue turns distant mountains into sleeping waves, where the extra shadow goes after the afternoon finishes stretching you. And then this is going to be the last one. Pirate Pug. Havast, lubbers of both land and sea. I be Captain Boofin Snoofer, and this be my pug parrot abomination, Squarkles. Squark! Buy gold, silver, Bitcoin, Cialis, free hentai casino games. Remortgage your timeshare. Squark! Antifa lesbian stealing senior dentures to trade for low-cost horse prescriptions online. Croatia. Piss on your feet to prevent athletic scholarship opportunities for competitive masturbators at Ron Jeremy Internet Medical School for perverts. Watch Mr. Beast travel back in time to kill and eat Montana's last Yeti. Yar, my apologies. His software be laden with viruses aplenty on account of being downloaded from the dark web. That's all. Good night.
I have tears in my eyes. That was great. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. That was great. You
I'm
guys should
gonna
make
have
like an
the-
animated series out of that.
I'm going to have the concept of lesbian Antifa stuck in my head, perhaps for days.
Alrighty. Thank you for that. So we have Michael up, and then we have Joy on deck. And then I will stop the recording and we will do round 2 if you guys are down for that.
All right. I wasn't sure what I wanted to share tonight, but after hearing Catherine's poem about Mick Foley, I dug up this old little bit. A Scotsman's short list. When I put on a kilt, it is not the quake and quickening of Connor MacLeod that I envision, nor is it the broomstick braggadocio of groundskeeper Willie, or the wild wanderlust of William Wallace championing freedom. When I put on a kilt, I am channeling the undying spirit of Rowdy Roddy Piper, whose list of errands had only 2 things. One of those items, the chewing of bubblegum. Roddy smacked the malicious back into the bubblicious, a temper shorter than a stubby stick of denting machine, a hot rod, double bubble, hubba bubba mother trucker, and that's just the TNT edit. Credit is due to the man who paved the way for the likes of Macho Man Randy Savage, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Kevin Nash, Dave Bautista, John Cena, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Pro wrestlers who took a page from Piper's playbook and made the natural transition to the big screen. Roddy, whether it was TBS, HBO, or AMC theaters, your screen time was more refreshing than a megaton of Mentos, Trident, Wrigley's, Big Red, Extra Extra, Icebreakers, and Eclipse. You heard it from these lips, and if I could have attended your burial, I would have peeled 2 pieces of Bazooka Joe, respectfully pitched them in 6 feet below, and acknowledged that you, Roddy, are an icon. A kilt-wearing, grin-bearing bucket of Saskatoon sass. And as long as John Carpenter's They Live keeps on streaming, I'll keep on believing, and Rowdy Roddy Piper will never stop kicking ass. Thanks.
Oh, I love that you put a They Live reference in that. You had to, of course, but I love that you did.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you were watching the screens during that. Like everyone's so excited. I
Oh,
love it.
good. No, I wasn't. I had my eyes on the poem, but I can go back and check the YouTube broadcast, I suppose.
All righty. Well, I have Joy up. Marissa, if you want to read, let me know. If not, we'll stop back at the top.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I was here last week when we wrote together, and I did rewrite the poem that I wrote, and I wanted to share it with you. And I made it a pantoum because I told you I was a formal poet most of the time. So you can be the judge of whether I improved it or made it worse. That's entirely okay by me. So a pantoum has a lot of repetition in it and rhymes, in case you don't know, but you'll find out real soon. And it's the first time I ever wrote a pantoum. I have no idea why I chose it. But anyway, I better stop talking and just read it. Okay, it's called Pantoum for Benjamin. That night I curled under his covers with Benjamin, the green sheets and warmth. But I returned to wash hands of herbs after a hike in leaf crunch and so forth. With Benjamin, the green sheets and warmth, I had brought hands that were garlic cutters after a hike in leaf crunch and so forth, and a pasta supper, some wine, and a verse. I had brought hands that were garlic cutters into his bed within range of nostril storm, and a pasta supper, some wine, and a verse. All of it to me pungent delight and the norm. Into his bed, within range of nostril storm, which I could not commune, happy to immerse all the to me pungent delight and the norm, since in my youth my face broke on my horse, with which I could not commune, happy to immerse myself in what aroma to my nose swarmed, since in my youth my face broke on my horse and my sense of smell became deformed. Myself in that aroma to my nose swarmed in those souks in the desert where spices were boss, and my sense of smell was deformed as I learned how to ride and be divorced in those souks in the desert where spices were boss from a former life where more than onion alarmed as I learned how to ride and be divorced from my newfound transport of turmeric and lime. From a former life where more than onion alarmed, I came to Ben's bed, garlicky and uncorked, from the newfound transport of turmeric and lime, which had to be washed off several times to comport. I came to Ben's bed, garlicky and uncorked, should have known straight away the sublime, which had to be washed off several times to comport, was an omen Ben would be wasting my time. Thank you.
Awesome piece. Awesome piece.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming back. I hope you come back and write with us in a few weeks as well. Up next, we have Marissa, our matriarch, on the mic.
Shit, I'm already up. Okay. Yeah, good team. Hang on.
Queen of Chaos.
I'm ready. I'm fucking ready. Yeah, that's not what I'm gonna do. All right. What do we feel like tonight? All right, you know what? Fuck this. All right, give me a number between 1 and 108.
17.
All right. Wings for falling. Your voice moves from my ear, down my spine, lodges in between my legs, where it plays on purpose, until I come to my own rescue. Your voice was the first place I called home. Your smile, the first pillow for my head. Your mouth, the first food for mine. I find myself weaving through the maze of your imagination. Your absence aggravated by a momentary missing of my heart's beat that waits for you. Your shadow follows mine. You are my safe space, and I fell hard. So very fucking hard. Though I find myself afraid most days, it is not of you. It is not having enough of you. Not having enough of myself to offer a swap for salvation, sacrilegious salvation, destiny of epic change at the very fabric of my world, please. Crumple it all up, rip it all up, tear through me all the things I need to be. I never thought I could be. You allow me to believe now I can be. I see the horizon. Orange California sun raising raisins, fingertips raisins now in ocean waves carving stealthy sand castles. We build our destiny on the backs of poet carrying pigeons' wings and a prayer made for two. My prayers answered, and my wings are you. Did you want another one?
Lovely, lovely.
Or are we good?
You could do another, or you can wait till next round. It's up to you. I will say,
boss lady.
Huh?
It's up to you, boss lady.
Yeah, read another one.
What? All right, so pick a. All right, between 100 and 107, 108.
Somebody else yell out a number for Marissa.
Yeah, like, all right, so let's pick something between like 30 and 108 or whatever. 100.
I like 36.
All right. Ah, this is a great poem. Let's go, Lobos! I cannot think of anywhere else I would rather be than with you. But you are already gone. When you leave, the Lobos come to gnaw on my spongy bones. They pick at what's left of my right to live or die. Right to die for poets should be a thing. Terminal velocity of poetry is a real condition. I would have donated my autograph to that dotted line a lifetime ago, even before you. Blowflies still walk the line you left, chalk outline of my corpse mangled by vultures and thieves. I reach for you still after death, and hope, and love. You decided to slay another dragon lady waiting on a miracle. Might as well wait for that generational change to come down the chain gang of rape revival in stride with every gospel line. God dispels spells of these dicks I gotta grind against just to find my shape of water that breaks each time. Bathed in anointed, annoying blank pages, they scream at me. They criticize me. They tell me how ugly I am, how I wear my stretched out skin and baby making days made out of aluminum, made by man, but never with man, never loved. So I want to apologize for loving you. You are the empty space between what I really think and what I say. I am willing to live and die by you. I freely hand over the hammer and plead, you take a swing, put me out of my misery, since I know nothing of how to navigate the negotiations of my heart. How do I talk myself out of silence and into help? For you never thought I would be gone. And I never thought you'd be just another poet predator statistic, preying on the remnants of what used to be a woman. Thanks. Thank you, Shaki.
Beautiful. Guys, that's another one. Butterflies and Lies. Go get you a copy with Red or Green Books, Marissa Prada. With that being said, she does also have show tomorrow night, open mic with Stephen Blaine. Featuring. I'm really bad at promoting things because I've been detached all week. But there's a lot of stuff going on with Word is Right. Just go to the Facebook page and check it out. Yes. So I will stop the live.